Hi, this is C.W. Wade, and today I'm going to debunk the dashcam time claims. I partially debunked this, I guess it didn't stick, so I wanted to do another one. For some of you it may be new, and for others it may be a review, and I'm going to try to go a little bit slower and explain it a little bit better. This way maybe they can get it. I got a comment that I'm kind of boring in my delivery. Well, this is not a channel where I'm going to dance around and scream, hoax, 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 hoax. This is more of a debunker channel. I'm going to just say the facts, and I'm going to try to be clear as possible, and that's it. Let's listen to what Review Manaphy, or whatever name he's going by today, says about this. This is his claim. This is also being used in the lawsuit of William Shanley. Let's see if it holds up to scrutiny.
And don't be listening to people telling you that it's been debunked, because it's never been debunked. See, I know which dash cam is which. I matched it up to the official report. The official report tells you what dash cam starts at what time. And this right here is dash cam 2. And then we see here Lieutenant Davis video. Lieutenant Davis video is dash cam 2. Now in the official report at 10:00:45, teachers blank and student run across parking lot with Keene to the Sandy Hook firehouse. This statement is put in the official report. It's supposed to go with Lieutenant Davis video, which means they saw it on the video. Otherwise, why are they writing it? Here it is, 10:00:45, 46. Do we see it? Nope. Look at that. 49, 50, 51. You don't see none of that. Why? Because they are lying. And not only that, but you can see this happen continually in the whole video of Sandy Hook hoax mass evacuation.
Okay, so according to the hoaxers, this proof of worldwide conspiracy. So let's take a look at their proof of worldwide conspiracy. All right, so we're going to start earlier in the timeline. We're going to start at 9:46:48. Connecticut State Police Sergeant Cario running towards the front entrance of Sandy Hook Elementary School, followed by Lieutenant, or then Master Sergeant Davis. We're going to be looking at Lieutenant Davis's video throughout this. Screenshot of 9:46:48. Absolutely nothing there. This is document 184096. And this is that color-coded timeline that he's looking at. As you can see, here is that 10:00:45. If you go to the first page of the timeline, it clearly states, the program times on several mobile video recorders were found to have been set incorrectly. For the purposes of this summary, those times have been corrected to reflect the actual time as determined by utilizing accurately documented communications from dispatch, and now correlate the times with the dispatch centers and properly set mobile video recorders. Okay, so they're telling you that the dash cam times are incorrect. Those are user set dash cams. They're off by a little bit. The state report has this video that we're talking about. It is video 55705 MVR, and that's Lieutenant Davis's dash cam. There is corresponding document 55705 PDF, and that report is the timeline for that actual video camera. The times in that report match the video camera times. The times in the timeline match actual time. And we have a third document, document 179599, and this report shows how much the cameras are off. For example, Lieutenant Davis's dash cam, the one we are talking about, was found to be off by 1 minute and 21 seconds. And it reads, therefore, 1 minute and 21 seconds needs to be added to the times reported. This main timeline, this incorporates all the dash cams, radio transmissions, officer reports, things like that. So there's several things that go into this timeline. Whereas 55705 PDF, that's just the dash cam. All right, so for example here, Sergeant Cario running towards the front entrance. In the main timeline, that is listed at 9:46:48. We'll call that real time. For the dash cam time, document 0055705, the time on that is 9:45:27. Exactly 1 minute and 21 second difference in those two documents. Here we are 9:45:20. There goes Sergeant Cario, and then followed by Lieutenant Davis. We'll do this in slow motion. There he is, Sergeant Cario. 9:45:27, right in the screen, followed by Lieutenant Davis. See him drawing his weapon.
Please, sir, I want some more. What?
Please, sir. I want some more.
Okay, all right, let's do another one then. This is the main timeline. This is real time, the color-coded timeline. 9:59:48. Trooper First Class Kick drives Natalie Hammond, teacher and gunshot victim, room 9, in his cruiser to the triage station. All right, so while we do have a victim here, she's in a car, so maybe they're not going to redact it. All right, so 9:59:42 on the clock. We're looking for 9:59:48. Natalie Hammond in a cruiser. Nothing there. So there, either we have evidence of tens of thousands of people, an entire state, according to Fetzer, in on a conspiracy, or there is a rational explanation that involves hoaxers misleading their viewers and not giving you their full answer. Let's see which one it is. Because 9:59:48, definitely nothing in the screen. As you recall, Davis's dash cam is off by 1:21. If you look at the document for his actual dash cam, it shows the time 9:58:27, exactly a minute and 21 second difference. Imagine that. In the big timeline, it's 9:59:48. All right, so let's take a look. There it is, 9:59:27. There's the cruiser. Back that up a second just in case you missed it. All right, 9:58:27 is the time we're looking for according to the report. Oh, there's that officer running. Here comes the cruiser, exactly 9:58:27. Trooper First Class Kick drives Natalie Hammond to the triage station. Let's do one more here. There are a few iconic photos. The lovely and talented and dedicated reporter of the Newtown Bee and volunteer firefighter Shannon Hicks. This is her photo. We all know this photo, but she took another iconic photo. And that's this photo, Detective Zulo. We're all familiar with this photo. He's state police detective and he's running into Sandy Hook Elementary School with his shotgun. But where is this in the report? First, his statement is in the report. It's document 251204. And he stated at 12:14:12 at approximately 9:35 hours, I was in my assigned cruiser off duty in the town of Southbury when I heard a radio broadcast for an active shooter at Sandy Hook Elementary School. I responded to the school, parked my vehicle. I then put on my bulletproof vest, retrieved my shotgun and raid jacket from the trunk, and ran towards the school. So in the main timeline, this is it at 9:53:57. Trooper First Class Zulo arrives on scene and runs to the front entrance of Sandy Hook Elementary School. Davis's video, so that's the video we're talking about. We'll take a look at this video, 9:53:57. Nothing there, nothing there, nothing happened. Remember the minute 21 difference. So in Doc 55705 shows 9:52:36. Trooper First Class Zulo arrives on scene, runs to the front entrance of the school. There he goes. I'm gonna watch this in slow motion. There he is, 9:52:37. See, it's the guy from the picture. So that's what you got to understand, all right? If you're a hoaxer, what's happening to you is you're being tricked by video makers like Review Manaphy and that Sherry Questions All. And they don't show you that the timeline clearly states that the program times on several video recorders were found to have been set incorrectly. I mean, you don't think that they saw page 1 of the document? Of course they saw it. And we find this throughout hoaxer videos, all right? They lied about the Christmas trees. They lied about the check-in here sign. They lied about the Wayback Machine. They lie. Wolfgang lies about his 2 officers. So going back to Review Manaphy's little scam he's pulling. Let's look at 100045. Teachers and student run across parking lot with TFC King. Since this video is showing teachers and a child, we would not actually expect to see that. What we would see is redacted. So we should be seeing redacted at the proper time for this. We're going to take a minute 21 away from 100045, and I do not expect Review Manaphy to be able to do this math. I'm going to do it for him. So if we look at the timeline for 55705, it shows this happens at 9:59:21. So what we're actually going to expect is a redacted at 9:59:21. 9:59:15 on the clock. Right there. Redacted. So there you go, Review. You can stop lying to these people anytime, you know, your little dancing show you put on. It's just a gimmick. You're a gimmick, and you are debunked. Hello everyone, this is C.W. Wade with SandyHookFacts.com, and today we're going to be fact-checking the EXIF data. EXIF data is data stored on images that can reveal things like the location of where the video was taken or the image was taken. However, this data is easily manipulated. For example, if the clock is wrong on the device taking the photo, like cameras, then the EXIF data may be wrong. Further, usually users are finding their images on the internet. Those images typically have been manipulated several times, having gone through one host or another, one person or another, Paint Shop, Photoshop, these type of programs. Users can set their own EXIF data and upload that, or people can upload their images to servers, and the web host hosting that could change the EXIF data. For example, Facebook completely removes it. Some hosts, like YouTube, can change it. Now, intuitively, most of us know that website dates and these type of things have historically been wrong. You can't rely on the internet. People change the dates, people change the content of web pages, different servers have different times, people are in different time zones. All kinds of things will change the displayed time. Especially notorious are Google date search things. It wasn't too long ago that I proved that Sandy Hook Hoax was controlled opposition by showing that they in fact created their website before 2012, thus proving they are controlled opposition. I used hoaxer technique to make my point, and I used it with the Sandy Hook Hoax website. But we know a lot of the date stuff is nonsense. In the video we need to talk about Sandy Hook, they relied heavily on the date thing to make their case.
QK Ultra
presented the segment on EXIF data. This information has been out there. It was not groundbreaking. In fact, it's already been debunked, but they still put it in their video. It's going to get debunked today by me. First, let's listen to his segment. I have abbreviated his segment to bring forth just the meat so that we don't have to listen to the whole long thing. And it's a very slow segment and very slow moving. I just whittled it down to just the heart of the matter, so that's what we're going to get to.
The now famous images of the students being led away from the Sandy Hook school by educators and law enforcement personnel were captured by Shannon Hicks. Her photos of the student evacuation were some of the first images shared with the broadcast media and became front-page news on papers around the world. Before these pictures were released to the AP and other media hubs, Shannon made a slideshow of some of these images and uploaded her slideshow to the Newtown B YouTube account. This video went live on December 14th, 2012. Using Adobe Photoshop CS5. Which brings us back to Shannon's slideshow on the Newtown B YouTube account. Perhaps by examining the metadata of this video, we can come up with a more accurate picture of when these images first went online. When looking into her video's metadata, something very shocking immediately stands out. Her video was created on December 13, 2012 at 5:44 p.m. Eastern Time. How could it be that this video was uploaded and encoded on December 13th if the photos within that video were supposedly taken the following morning? Similarly, John Voquette, an associate editor at the Newtown B, captured a short clip of the purported chaos behind the firehouse, which he also uploaded to the Newtown B's.
Beyond that, there was an incident that possibly involved a shooting, and that we are still standing by for firm information or a press briefing.
The metadata for this video also shows it was created on December 13th. This is very strong evidence that these images were taken before the event, maybe in a drill or dress rehearsal situation, in preparation for the FEMA false flag terrorism event, better known as the Sandy Hook hoax.
QK Ultra
claims that this is very strong evidence. This video was taken before the event. Alright, let's see if his presentation can withstand the scrutiny and fact-checking of CW Wade. First thing we're going to do is we're going to check the video's EXIF data and see if they are in fact correct. So I downloaded the Newtown B video. I'm going to use my EXIF data checker. Alright, so we're going to check the creation date of this video. It does indeed show a creation date of December 13th, 2012, one day before the shooting. As to the tools I'll be using, I'll be showing every video. You can download every video. I use EXIF Tool. This is a program that's freely available. Anybody can double check my work. Full disclosure here, as I mentioned, this is already a debunked claim. Other conspiracies have used this same claim. Metabunk had already debunked this claim, and they were using this on a different conspiracy. Mick West already did a number on this one, so credit where credit's due. He made a video recording a timestamp and then uploaded that. He recorded his video on July 21st, 2014, uploaded it to YouTube. You can see, despite clearly displaying the creation date and time as July 21st, that YouTube shows a creation date of July 20th, 2014. So one day before the video was actually made. That was Mick West's experiment. So I thought, if that's the case, there must be other examples. So the challenge was to find videos that one can be fairly sure they were not created the day before. Alright, so we have to be able to look at the video and know what date they were created based on the content. My first stop was back to the Newtown B's channel. They had a video posted there called A Snowy December Morning in Newtown, December 9th, 2009. This video was uploaded December 9th, 2009. Basically, it's just pictures of Newtown after a snow. As you can see, it shows a creation date of December 8th. So they made the video one day before it actually snowed. Used the Weather Underground history. I went to December 8th. It did not snow December 8th. It was a clear day. That's probably why they made a video highlighting December 9th, because it didn't snow on the 8th. So I also checked the history for December 9th, and yes, it showed it snowed. Let's do another Newtown B. This is Noontime Hailstorm, March 28th, 2012. This video was uploaded to YouTube 3/28, showing the hailstorm that snuck up on Newtown. We give a little weather report for that day.
Well, this is the view outside the back office of the Newtown B. Approximately 12 noon on Wednesday, as hail is beginning to fall from a fast-moving thunderstorm that the National Weather Service is tracking.
So Newtown B has a remarkable ability to pre-film weather events. As you probably guess, it was created on the 27th, the day before the hailstorm. Remarkable feat of the Newtown B. So the next video we're going to look at is Veterans Day recognized by Newtown schools. And this video was uploaded November 11th, 2010. This video is basically a slideshow of Veterans Day at the schools, including Sandy Hook Elementary School, by the way. So you run it through the checker and you guessed it. Creation date November 10th, 2010. So apparently Newtown B is in on a grand conspiracy involving Veterans Day. The next video we're going to look at is Voice of the People on WTNH News, July 20th, 2012, and most people will recognize that as the Dark Knight Massacre Day. This video was uploaded to YouTube July 20th, 2012. When you check it with EXIF tool, it shows a creation date of July 19th. There we go. The Dark Knight News was actually published the day before the shooting as well. Alright, next up we're going to do several videos. I found several videos that were published December 14th. The first video is Brunch with Bernie. Talks about the date in the video. He filmed this December 14th, 2012 and uploaded it December 14th, 2012.
American Way. Tom Hartman here with you. It's a tragedy. 27 people reported dead in Newtown, Connecticut.
Another video that when you run it through the checker, it shows December 13th, 2012. So this next video, ECU football practice interviews, December 14th, 2012. So they were doing some practice interviews before the games on Saturday. On Friday, December 14th, we'll run it through the checker. December 13th. That's pretty amazing that they were able to do that. Next is a large earthquake strikes off the California coast, published December 14th, 2012. Talking about an earthquake of the same day, published to YouTube December 14th, 2012. These amazing people were able to predict this, and they prepare this video December 13th, 2012. The next video is News of the Nefarium, this goofball, and he was sitting around waiting on the end of days in a few days from December 14th, 2012. Apparently he had predicted it. So this video was uploaded to YouTube December 14th, 2012 concerning a talk he is saying he had December 14th, 2012.
Okay, everybody, it is one day late on my news and views from the Nefarium. This is Friday, December 14th, 2012. We are 1 week from the apocalypse that we've been counting down for some time. And I will be having a members bid chat on Friday night, December 21st, to usher in the apocalypse with everybody, or go out in style, as the case may be.
And when you check it with the EXIF checker, December 13th, 2012. This is a video of the news conference that we all watched that day. We know this happened on December 14th, 2012. This is a live CNN broadcast that was uploaded to YouTube by this guy on December 14th, 2012. We'll run it through the checker. Lieutenant Vance's press conference was actually broadcast on CNN 1 day before it was actually broadcast on CNN. Alright, so we'll do one for Tommy Lapp here. He loves that wrestling. He believes in that wrestling. So this one has to be true, right? So SmackDown results for December 14th, 2012. Dedicated and erstwhile fan of the sport. Uploaded December 14th, 2012. So he was right on that. And he couldn't wait to get that uploaded. And you guessed it. WWE SmackDown was actually created December 13th, 2012. That's amazing. Alright, folks. This date stuff of these hoaxers, it's not real. You can search the internet. You can create a conspiracy, just about any conspiracy you want, based on finding dates on the internet or finding dates with Google, finding EXIF data, this kind of stuff. If you look for it, you can find it, because this stuff is not accurate. It's all over the place. No matter what subject you're looking at, you're going to find bad data. And that's because people change it, servers change it. You're not looking at the original sources of the data. You're looking at either displays of the data or changes of the data. All right? It's obvious that at least quite often YouTube will change the creation date to one day before the actual creation date. And that's what's going on here. That's what can happen. This is not evidence of any type of conspiracy. In fact, it's not evidence at all. All it is hoaxers are debunked.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this edition of Sandy Hook Hoaxers Debunked, brought to you courtesy of NewtownPostExaminer.com and SandyHookStalkers.wordpress.com. I'm your host, Keith Johnson, and today we will be visiting the YouTube channel of Mr. Stosh and reviewing one of his latest videos entitled Sandy Hook DNA Report Revisited, published on January 6th. Says here, one more look at DNA Supplemental Report 001221616. Okay, fair enough. We'll do that. For those unaware, Mr. Stosh is one of these armchair detectives who, quote-unquote, contributed to this new hoaxer video entitled, We Need to Talk About Sandy Hook, which has recently been taking quite a beating from friends and colleagues of mine, including C.W. Wade, who for some odd reason, along with myself and Lenny Posner, scrawled on what appears to be a digital movie poster for this thing. I don't know if that's a hit list or what.
Whatever.
Exactly. Okay, now for those of you interested in following along with today's discussion, you can access DNA Supplemental Report 001221616 by simply going to NewtownPostExaminer.com. On the front page, you can scroll down here, and it says Official Reports. You want to click on that. You come up to this page, and you go over to this link right there. Go ahead and click on it. Bring you up to this these documents here. You want to scroll down about 12 rows, I imagine here. It's the second or third one over to the left. There you go. Brings you this State of Connecticut report. This is from the Forensics Laboratory right here. DNA Supplemental Reports dated May of 2013. All this stuff here is going to come into play significantly later. But first off, Mr. Stosh begins this video by correctly pointing out that there were a few items, which I've underlined here in red, where DNA profiles could not be obtained. He goes on to describe what those items are, and then in typical hoaxer fashion, pays fast and loose with the facts. Let's just have a listen here. We'll go to his video and hear what he has to say about it.
41S1 was the bolt of a .22 caliber Savage rifle. 41S2 was the trigger of the .22 caliber Savage rifle, and 42S1 was the empty magazine. Like I said, these items were as clean as a whistle, like nobody even touched them.
Clean as a whistle, as if no one ever touched them. Okay, folks, this is one of my pet peeves, embellishment, adding a detail or a statement here and there that completely misrepresents the facts. Now, it's fair to say that the vast majority of people who watch these hoaxer videos are not going to do any fact-checking. So you got some people walking away from this video left with the impression that no one touched the bolt or the trigger or the empty magazine of the Savage rifle, and that's not what the report says. As you can see here, DNA was extracted from the bolt, from the trigger, from the empty magazine. It's just that insufficient amplification products were detected from those items to generate DNA profiles. So that's far from being clean as a whistle. All right? Now, perception is everything, folks, so let's try and stick with the facts so that people are not misled. Now, admittedly, this is a minor point, so I'm not going to spend any more time on it. Let's move on to Stosh's next order of business, which in my opinion constitutes a major flub. Now, let's listen in.
Now, the other evidence examined in this report is non-specific, as it simply refers to an unspecified rifle. So take a look. 21S1, forearm of rifle, trigger of rifle, pistol grip of rifle, shoulder stock of rifle. We have no idea what rifle this was. Was this the Savage rifle, the AR-15, or was it Lanza's toy rifle? How can we be for certain? Now, considering that only Adam and Nancy's DNA was matched in this report, we can assume that the state police want us to make the connection with the Savage rifle.
Did you hear that, folks? We can assume that the state police want us to make the connection with the Savage rifle. Really? Now, Mr. Stosh, weren't you listening when your teacher said that when you make assumptions, you make an ass out of you and me? Although I don't know what I have to do with it, you know. No, that's more like it. Now, once again, Mr. Stosh is taking artistic license where it should not be applied. He says that the report refers to an unspecified rifle. We have no idea what rifle this was, he says. How can we be for certain? Well, Mr. Stosh, we can be for certain by first acknowledging that the report you're reading is a supplemental report to another report. Would you all agree with me there? So let's take a look at that report, shall we? As you can see, it's from the same department and it's dated earlier in the year. And if you want to scroll down here, you can see that item number 2 is clearly referred to as the Bushmaster 223. They even talk about the chambered round here. These subsections refer to items related to that weapon. Turn the page, and we see that item number 3 refers to the letter to She students, and item number 4 to the Savage rifle. Now we can go back to the supplemental report, and we see that it is consistent with the previous document just by going and doing a process of elimination. Item number 2 is the Bushmaster. Item number 3 refers to the letter to She students, and item number 4, the Savage rifle. And if you want further confirmation, item number 2 is the Bushmaster. Simply go back here, and you'll see that it refers to a pistol grip on the rifle. As you can see, the Bushmaster has a pistol grip. The Savage does not. And we can rule out any of Adam Lanza's toy guns because they were not entered into evidence. So now that we know what rifle the supplemental report is referring to, we can dispel a long-held hoax or myth that Adam Lanza's DNA was not found on the Bushmaster. The supplemental report clearly shows that it was. Mystery solved. Okay, now let's move on to murkier waters. And this next segment, folks, deals with page 5 of the supplemental DNA report, where Stosh correctly points out that both Nancy and Adam Lanza were ruled out as the source of DNA profiles found on a variety of items, which I have outlined here in red. Now, I'm not going to begin to speculate why Adam's DNA was not found on parts of the Bushmaster or whose DNA it was. Was it someone who previously handled the weapon, a friend, a relative, a cop even who picked up the weapon? Who knows? We do know, folks, that cross-contamination is a problem when you're dealing with DNA evidence. And all you have to do is look at a previous DNA report, and we discovered that the DNA of a lab assistant was found on one of the items tested. Now, surely you wouldn't suggest that the lab assistant was the one who actually shot up that school, would you? I mean, actually, judging from the nonsense I've seen over the past couple years, wouldn't be surprised if someone tried to make that connection. Anyway, cross-contamination happens. Even DNA of the murder victims was found on some of the weapons, so there you go. Okay, but this isn't what Mr. Stosh addresses in his video, so we need not belabor the issue. He's more concerned about why, out of all the weapons-related items that had DNA profiles that didn't match Nancy or Adam, why did the lab decide to only run the DNA found on the 22 cartridges? And that's a fair question. Unfortunately, Mr. Stosh doesn't have an answer for us. Here's what he has to say. Let's listen into his video.
Now, it remains a mystery why only the .22 caliber cartridges were searched against the databases and not any other evidence. Now, we can speculate on what this all means and what it all points to, but the information in this report alone speaks volumes.
Yes, I agree. The report does speak volumes. However, since Mr. Stosh does not speak the language, he is therefore unable to give us or his audience a proper interpretation. You see, this is the problem with the hoaxers, folks. There's not one expert among them qualified to analyze the material they call into question. And this goes for Mr. Stosh and his analysis of the supplemental DNA report. Now, admittedly, I'm no expert myself. The difference is that when I don't have an answer, I reach out to those who do. And in this case, I went directly to the source. I phoned the Connecticut State Division of Scientific Services, spoke with this gentleman here, Dr. Dahong Sung, Deputy Director of Forensics, Biology, and DNA. Now, I called Dr. Sun without any advance warning, so he did not have the report in front of him, but I did, and I posed a series of questions and brought up Mr. Stosh's concern about why the 22 cartridges were singled out over other weapons-related items and ran through state and federal DNA databases. So here's what I learned. We go back to page 5, okay, and we can clearly see that both Nancy and Adam are eliminated as a source of the DNA profiles found on the 22 cartridges, whereas both Nancy and Adam are eliminated as contributors to DNA profiles found on the other items. Now, from my understanding, after speaking with Dr. Sun, use of the word source in a report indicates that the DNA profile likely originated from one individual, whereas use of the word contributor indicates that the profiles likely originated from more than one individual. With me? Okay, now, to help demonstrate how they came to this conclusion, I'm providing y'all here with both charts that came with the supplemental DNA report. This is the first chart, and I have highlighted the following. In green, we have the DNA profiles for 3G1, both sides of the envelope flap. In red, we have item number 42S2, the 22 cartridges, and in yellow, we have items number 13S2, a DNA sample from Nancy, and 14, a DNA sample from Adam. Now, I didn't encapsulate 3S2, the adhesive side of the stamp, because the DNA profiles match the envelope flap. In other words, whoever touched the envelope also did the stamp. Anyway, if you look carefully, you see what all of these items have in common. They all have either 1 or 2 values in each of the boxes, both in chart 1 and 2. This will become significant later. Now, I want to warn you folks, this gets quite technical, so bear with me. Anyway, to understand why the DNA found on the 22 cartridges was singled out and run through state and federal databases, we need to learn about a little thing called CODIS. According to the FBI, CODIS is the acronym for the Combined DNA Index System. It is a generic term used to describe the FBI's program of support for criminal justice DNA databases, as well as the software used to run these databases. Next, what DNA information is stored in these databases? Again, according to the FBI, the DNA profile consists of 1 or 2 alleles at the 13 CODIS core loci. With me so far? Might as well define some of these terms as we go along. For instance, here's the definition of loci. Got it? Okay. Moving on. Here's the 13 core CODIS loci the FBI refers to, and it should be pointed out that generally these 13 core CODIS loci are required for submission of convicted offender, arrestee, detainee, and legal profiles. Okay, now going back to the charts, we see that these 13 core CODIS loci are clearly listed along the top of this table in the supplemental DNA report, and on this one as well. Okay, now going back, I just want to emphasize that according to the FBI, the DNA profiles in their database consist of 1 or 2 alleles at the 13 CODIS core loci. Okay, 1 or 2 alleles, not 3, not 4. 1 or 2 alleles. This is important to take note of. Okay, now in case you don't know what an allele is, take a gander at this for a minute, let it sink in, and then we will move on. Okay, so we go back to the FBI website, and on this page right here, we're going to scroll down, and we find what we learn here. Is it generally a sample is considered to have originated from a single individual if 1 or 2 alleles are present at all loci for which typing results were obtained. Scroll down a little more. A sample is generally considered to have originated from more than one individual if 3 or more alleles are present at 1 or more loci. So we go back to the report here. As you can see, the Christmas card, 1 or 2 alleles, 31, 31.2. Okay, 1 or 2 alleles, that's it. Same thing here with the 22 cartridges, okay? 1 or 2 alleles only. This is Nancy. 1 or 2 alleles, because they took a sample, so obviously it's going to only have 1 or 2 alleles. That's 32.2, and that's 32.2 in case you're trying to say that's 3 numbers. It's not. 2 numbers, okay? Everything else has 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 7 alleles, indicating that it's more one individual, okay? More than one contributor to those DNA profiles, okay? Same thing here on page number 2. You want to do the same thing. That's the 22 cartridges, 2 alleles. That's 14.2, by the way. All right? That's why these 22 cartridges are unique. No mystery. That's why they were run through the Connecticut and national databases, folks, because all these others had more, 3, 4, 5, 6 alleles, 7 alleles. Got it?
What we learned.
So what we learn is that DNA is much like a fingerprint. If you have a print that's been degraded or one that has another fingerprint superimposed on top of it, not going to make a very good sample for submission. Okay? All right, so now that's been cleared up. Let's address a hoax or myth about these 22 cartridges that continues to be propagated on the internet. It's been said that after they were run through state and federal DNA databases that they came up with a match of a convicted felon in New York. That ain't true, folks. Those 22 cartridges did not come up with a match on a convicted felon, contrary to popular belief. As you can see, the 22 cartridges were searched against the Connecticut and national DNA databases, but no matching profiles were found. The hit they obtained on a convicted offender was from the DNA profile found on the envelope flap, and we now know the story there. Some prankster posing as Peter Lanza sent a letter 2 days after the shooting from somewhere in New York. Okay, you can see right here. It's all spelled out in this article. Just read it for yourself. Convicted felon had no connection to the shooting whatsoever. These 22 cartridges and the envelope have nothing to do with each other. Okay, folks? So there you go. Mystery solved. Now, getting back to Mr. Stosh, grading his presentation on a scale from A to F, I give this video a D+. Not a D or a D-. Mr. Stosh gets a D+ because he's at least articulate and well-spoken. You can follow along with what he has to say, and he at least attempts to back up his claims with documentation, which is more than I can say for some of his colleagues, but that's a matter we will take up on another day. Meanwhile, if I were to pass along a failing grade to anyone connected with this video, it would be the admins over at the Sandy Hook Hoax Facebook page, where they have this video posted along with this outrageous lie. Despite there being DNA evidence found on many items, there is no DNA evidence linking Adam Lanza to the crime. An absolute lie. We've already established in this video that the supplemental DNA report found Adam Lanza's DNA on the Bushmaster rifle. And other DNA reports link Adam Lanza to the other weapons. And I'm just going to give my voice a rest here for a while and let you read these documents for yourself. Although I do want to add something. You're going to see here where it says that he cannot be eliminated. He cannot be eliminated as a contributor, and what that means is basically that he is that it is his DNA, because the chances of him even falling into that category is like 1 in 62 million in the Caucasian population. So when you ever see that he cannot be eliminated as a contributor, that's what it basically means, is that it is him. They just can't say with 100% proof. And I think that document is coming up here. See, it says 1 in 2.6 billion is the chances of him falling into that category. So yeah, that's him. Okay, well, that just about covers it, folks. Feel free to leave a comment. I'm eager to hear what you have to say, but if you have a critique, please spell it out and back it up with facts. Simple thumbs down is unacceptable. Okay, put a lot of work into this, and I expect my critics to do the same. And be sure and check out my websites and subscribe to this channel, because there's a lot more where this came from. So until next time, this is Keith Johnson, signing off.
Tyranny News Network's failure to conduct even the most basic research. Tyranny News Network failed to conduct basic research. This came as a bit of a shock to me given how his segment begins.
Regardless of how corny it sounds, my purpose has been to help others discover history and learn about our present society with enough raw data to form their own perspectives. The major media outlets don't provide us with unvarnished, meaningful news, and the result is a nation of people with very limited understanding of events taking place in their world.
So his purpose is to provide the viewer with unvarnished, meaningful news based on raw data. Well, okay. That sounds pretty good to me. One thing that kind of bugged me, though, is his name.
My name's Peter.
No, not that one. Peter's a fine name. I'm talking about the name Tyranny News Network. It seemed to be a play on CNN, which stands for Cable News Network, though they don't really call it that much anymore. So that would make Tyranny News Network TNN. Except TNN was already a channel.
You've been watching TNN.
It was the Nashville network, back before it became Spike TV. Anyway, that isn't really something that's stupid in the movie. It's just kind of awkward in my opinion. I guess you could call it an anomaly that has puzzled me. Anyway, right from the start, TNN goes straight for the jugular in exposing the Sandy Hook hoax and starts talking about a house. Not the house where the shooter supposedly lived, but his neighbor's house.
Upon examining the driveway at the Lanza home, there doesn't appear to be any obvious signs of activity having taken place. However, when we examine the Trent Acosta's driveway, there appears to be tire tracks from cars that drove indiscriminately over their lawn. To help visualize the tracks, I've highlighted them. Based on what the aerial photos depict, one could draw the conclusion that they were taken later in the day or afternoon. But were there any aerial photos taken from that morning? It turns out that there's at least one. Here's a photo depicting the same general area, with the Lanza home on the left and the Trent Acosta home on the right. But oddly, the Lanza home doesn't appear to be the focus of attention. The home next door, on the other hand, can be seen to have at least 2 vehicles in the driveway and a couple of figures which I assume are investigators.
That's kind of like, okay, so what? I don't really see what this is evidence of. So when he then says,
this isn't evidence of anything conclusive at this point, but it's an anomaly that has puzzled me since first seeing this photo.
It's like, well, alright, then why are you wasting my time with this crap? Let me just point out that this documentary is almost 3 hours long. It's not like it really needed this much padding. But then there was this thing TNN said that really stuck out at me.
The home next door, on the other hand, can be seen to have at least 2 vehicles in the driveway and a couple of figures which I assume are investigators. It doesn't appear that the home is being used as a staging area for convenience. The barricade created by the squad car and police tape is at the next door driveway. If I didn't know better, this early photo of the scene would give me the impression that the secondary crime scene was this greenhouse. What were they doing at the home next door?
And this is where I get the impression that TNN didn't even bother to conduct basic research into the case before he made this segment. And I say that because he didn't even bother to conduct basic research into the case before he made this segment. The official report on Sandy Hook was put together by Connecticut State Attorney Stephen Sedensky and was based primarily on files from the Connecticut State Police. If you read that report, you'd know exactly what the police were doing over at the neighbor's house. I know that report is like 3,000 pages long, and reading hurts your brain, and isn't as fun as taking bong rips and eating Rice Krispie treats. But when you say things like,
we stand firmly that the information we've provided is accurate and the few conclusions presented are reasonable,
your viewers might actually hold you to that, and then they'd find out that you didn't read the report. Because if you had, surely you would have seen the file that details how the police secured the home where the Sandy Hook shooter lived, in which they said at 12:30 in the afternoon their RG-12 armored vehicle was positioned at the neighbor's driveway at 34 Yogananda Street. Or this one, where an officer says, we parked at an adjacent driveway and the perimeter consisting of sniper teams was reinforced by East Team members. Or this one, where another officer says that during operations at 36 Yogananda Street, state police tactical units noted that the lights and television were on in the neighboring residence at 34 Yogananda Street. But then he found out that the family that lives there was already evacuated, after which the unit then cleared and secured that house. Or this one, where another officer notes that all the residents at 34 Yogananda Street were evacuated, as was done at the homes across the street.
My purpose has been to help others discover history and learn about our present society with enough raw data to form their own perspectives. The major media outlets don't provide us with unvarnished, meaningful news.
So despite all this raw data explaining what the police were doing at that house, CNN just says,
what were they doing at the home next door? This isn't evidence of anything conclusive at this point, but it's an anomaly that has puzzled me since first seeing this photo.
How did he not know about this if he read the official report? Even if you didn't read the report, why didn't you immediately look up this information when you found this anomaly that has been puzzling you? Yeah, I can smell you applying a layer of a certain substance onto the case here, but it don't smell like varnish. I mean, am I the only one reminded of Bart Simpson giving a book report on Treasure Island, except he didn't read it, so he just talks about how the book is shaped and does his best to sound like people do when they've actually done their homework? I guess the whole point, honestly, TNN, is why would you say things like,
as I see it, Sandy Hook is an issue important enough that every American should have a detailed account of the event available to them. And I mean full disclosure.
When you haven't even bothered to read the one that's already out. You know, the one that you show in that film you made, that you're in now. See, when you put out a movie called We Need to Talk About Sandy Hook, in which you say things like,
we stand firmly that the information we've provided is accurate,
and dedicate an entire segment to just this topic, I expect you to read the publicly available at no charge official report. You should actually show up for class and pay attention, instead of relying on, you know, self-study.
Professor Doom's embarrassingly inept analysis of official documents. Professor Doom's analysis of official documents is embarrassingly inept. We'll get to the embarrassment later. First, let's hear him out. Professor, please begin.
So, let me get on now with my very first document here that I want to show you. This document here is from the Connecticut State Police. And you will be able to see here in their reports, and a lot of these reports were just from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Connecticut State Police was reporting what the FBI had reported to them.
Well, he is looking at the actual case file, so I like him so far. Better than some other people I could name from this documentary. So I'll give Professor Doom a point. Alright, you were saying.
And in this report here, it goes on to state thus: the shooter's schooling began at Sandy Hook Elementary School.
Alright, I'm deducting a point. And that's for distorting the truth. In fact, I'm deducting the entire point system because you distorted the truth when the truth was clearly visible at the time you tried to distort it. The full explanation reads, Report number 49 documents an interview conducted on December 14th, 2012. The interviewee seemed to be able to provide more information than most others regarding the shooter, according to the subject interviewed.
The shooter's schooling began at Sandy Hook Elementary School.
Compare that context with the misrepresentation that Professor Doom uses to introduce the same information.
And in this report here, it goes on to state thus: the shooter's schooling began at Sandy Hook Elementary School and moved on to Newtown Middle School for 5th and 7th grades. Around 7th grade, the shooter moved to St. Mary's School and then moved to Newtown High School, where he completed 9th grade. Okay, so I'm going to stop there.
It, meaning the official report, does not say that here. It says very clearly that an interview subject on the day of the shooting at Sandy Hook seemed to be able to tell more than most people regarding the shooter. It does not, and I cannot emphasize this distinction enough, it does not say that this information provided by the witness is to be considered accurate nor exhaustive. These are serious investigators. They are not going to rely upon on-the-spot recollections from one person to establish a concrete timeline of the shooter's education a decade after it actually took place. No responsible person would do that. Professor Doom does that. In fact, it's the entire basis for his argument, except for the fact that he never actually makes an argument. It's apparent that Mr. Doom has a respect for the general concept of a document. The word itself, document, seems to convey expertise to him, and thus expertise from him when he says the word, document. I suspect that's why he says it so many times. The police have a responsibility to track down actual records and compare them with witness statements. Both are documents, but they are not the same thing. And indeed, the next file that Professor Doom shows is evidence that the authorities did their due diligence in verifying these sorts of claims. The opposite of what Professor Doom does, which is to use witness statements to indirectly imply that verifying records are somehow false.
This document here was written up by Rachel Van Ness after they requested permission from Adam Lanza's father, Peter Lanza, to obtain all school records for Adam Lanza from Newtown, Connecticut. And the only school that is mentioned here or in any other documents where records were to be obtained, and the only school listed is St. Rose of Lima School, and it states here, number 355, St. Rose of Lima School records pertaining to Adam Lanza. Didn't we just see in the very first document that I presented that the only schools that were mentioned were Sandy Hook, Newtown Middle, St. Mary's, and the high school? There is no mention in that document at all that Adam Lanza ever attended St. Rose of Lima School.
The file he refers to as that document is again not a record of the shooter's educational history, but instead is the recollection of one person remembering another person's educational history with no preparation whatsoever. Rather than treat it as such, Doom regards it as gospel and draws every single one of his conclusions from this extremely tenuous assertion.
So why is it that they are making the claim that he attended Sandy Hook when this document and Peter Lanza refute that claim? And they are specifically requesting school attendance records for St. Rose of Lima only and no other school at all.
The argument that Professor Doom presents, but will not own up to, likely because it is so feeble and ridiculous on its face, works like this. Number 1. The interview subject in the first document did not mention St. Rose of Lima in their list of schools the shooter attended. Number 2. The file transfer record specifically mentions St. Rose of Lima and does not specifically mention Sandy Hook Elementary. The file transfer record is thus wrong in its inference that Lanza attended St. Rose of Lima. See number 1. Because one file is proven wrong in this comparison regarding St. Rose of Lima, the other file is thus wrong regarding Sandy Hook Elementary. Ignore the implication that the disproving document from number 2 is also established as being incorrect by this argument. Conclusion. Adam Lanza never attended Sandy Hook Elementary School. Continuing with Doom's argument, he claims that if this investigation was of a real crime with a real suspect, we would have seen these kinds of subpoenas for educational records from each of the schools that the unnamed witness mentioned: Sandy Hook Elementary, Sandy Hook Middle, Reed Intermediate, and Sandy Hook High, as well as St. Mary's School. Instead, all we have is a request for records from St. Rose of Lima. The neurons are almost firing in Doom's brain here. There was a moment of hope when I first saw this documentary that maybe he was about to reach a reasonable conclusion, because indeed, one of these schools is not like the other. Tragically, for me and anyone else who sat through this compost heap of a documentary, he fails to reach the intelligent, reasonable observation. There's a separate line item for St. Rose of Lima school records, and not these other schools, because St. Rose of Lima is a private school. Sandy Hook Elementary, Sandy Hook Middle, Reed Intermediate, and Sandy Hook High are public schools. The state of Connecticut did not need to request the records from those schools because it doesn't need a subpoena to access information that it already has. See this line above the mention of St. Rose of Lima? It reads, educational records, including PPTs from 1st through 11th grade pertaining to Adam Lanza, the shooter. Thus, this evidence transfer record simply indicates that the records from St. Rose of Lima, number 355, are a separate file from the educational records, number 332. These file numbers are in chronological order of when they were entered by the party creating the initial investigative record. So this shows that records from St. Rose of Lima were obtained later than the other schools, and it's reasonable to conclude that the planning and placement team didn't have those files, which is not very surprising given that the shooter only attended the school for 8 weeks. I would now show supporting evidence that investigators had to obtain records from St. Rose of Lima separately from the rest of the shooter's school records, but Professor Doom helpfully already has that file ready for me. He just doesn't have a lucid understanding of its significance.
Now I want to show you the next document, and I want to remind you I've poured through every document that they presented for researchers. And we're talking over 1,000 of these documents. And the only document that reports an official request by subpoena for the school records of Adam Lanza was made to St. Rose of Lima. St. Rose of Lima school records, subpoena served. On 1/2/2013, I served Principal Mary Rose Maloney with a subpoena for Adam Lanza's school records. And they claim that they did in fact receive the school records. How come in none of these documents is there any request by subpoena for the school records of Adam Lanza from Sandy Hook Elementary, from Newtown Middle School, or from any other school for that matter?
Hey dummy, they're right here. In that document you showed 20 seconds ago. The cops already have those records. None of this is suspect. Quite the opposite. It shows that investigators were thorough, recognized gaps in the suspect's timeline, even very small ones such as this, tracked down the missing information and added it to the record. Look, there are errors in the official report. All investigations have errors, but this isn't one of them. The error was in one person, remembering a school another person attended 7 years ago for 8 weeks as St. Mary's instead of St. Rose. Rather than recognize that person's simple and very minor mistake, Professor Doom latches onto it and runs as far as he possibly can with it. That's what this entire embarrassingly inept segment amounts to. Because after that, it just ends.
And that seems to be in complete contradiction to the document stating by the Connecticut State Police and the Federal Bureau of Investigation that Adam Lanza attended Sandy Hook Elementary School.
Doom's head just waggles back and forth and says nothing, and then he's done. I'm guessing that the filmmakers had planned for Professor Doom to dub over here whatever his point is, his specific argument that he is making as to what any of this alleged missing evidence amounts to. But Firehouse Shenanigans, or Mr. Stosh is wrong about nearly everything. This next segment by Mr. Tosh. Mrs. Tosh? This next segment by Mrs. Tosh covers a pretty popular area of speculation about the events on the day of the Sandy Hook shooting, that being some aerial footage of the firehouse that supposedly captures incriminating shenanigans taking place that prove the official story must be a lie. Unfortunately, like everyone else in We Need to Talk About Sandy Hook, Mrs. Tosh has ignored significant facts about the case in order to make his claims, so his observations are not well informed and can be proven wrong with pretty little effort. Since shenanigans at the firehouse are the issue here, let's let Stosh present his case.
Now there are plenty of reasons why people think Sandy Hook was a drill gone live. Remember the footage of the parents walking aimlessly at the firehouse?
Alright, it gets really interesting in a minute, and you're going to see, without a doubt, how the people are recycling back into the building. Alright, now the helicopter's pulling out. See the line of people there? See the line of people? Alright, we're coming up to the front. Look how they're coming back in. They're taking that turn. Watch them take the turn. Up. And they're coming right back into the building.
Now, skeptics erroneously have attempted to denounce this evidence as manufactured and looped by YouTubers. Yet, as we can see, before the helicopter video pans out, the people are just filing right back into the firehouse. Yes, arrows were given out by various YouTubers to show the characters looping around. And yes, songs were attributed to the edited versions of the videos to clearly show how ludicrous it all is. And yes, the video is played forward and backward right before it pans out to show clearly where the people are headed. But this tape, quite clearly, is not looped, and we can clearly see people walking in circles.
Again, this is a pretty popular theory about the case, that these people are walking in circles in order to create the visual of there being more people at the firehouse than there really were. Personally, I always thought it just looked like they were worried. That was before I actually looked into it, so this was just my first impression. People pace when they're worried, and maybe these were the parents who still hadn't been reunited with their kids, or people just trying to process the massive psychological trauma they're currently experiencing, so they're walking in circles. Heck, Scrooge McDuck had a room in his mansion built just for walking in a circle, and he called it the worry room. I think everyone's entitled to have some silly assumptions when they first approach an issue. After all, you have to start somewhere. But then you should actually test your assumptions. So let's do our homework. Let's do the obvious thing and establish what was going on at the firehouse when this aerial footage was filmed.
Now note, it has been established through matching the highly questionable police report and the police and fire department scanner feeds with the aerial feed that we arrived at a time frame between 10:36 and 11 a.m. and that's for the helicopter footage that we see.
On that topic, at first I thought Stosh was careless about establishing this timeline.
So this firehouse camera footage actually takes place somewhere between 11:27 a.m. and 12:18 p.m.
Not so fast. Here, Mrs. Tosh gives his counter-argument in the comments of my video. I don't know if his time frame is accurate necessarily, but he presents a quite persuasive argument that mine was not. My concern is just the truth, so I welcome on-topic, fact-based criticisms such as this. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Tosh, for your help with the project. Your CIA check's in the mail. So, what was going on at the firehouse during Stosh's 10:36 to 11 a.m. time frame? Well, the command post for all responding police and fire departments was set up there at around 10:51. After that point, Newtown Chief of Police Kehoe was running things. I'm sure that was in a secure room, as he couldn't well run the emergency response with panicked family members running in and out of the room. We know that officers there had a multitude of responsibilities, including assisting with reunifying children with their parents, taking statements from witnesses, assisting the superintendent, and staying with families who were still looking for their children. At the same time they were trying to establish order, the police were also trying to get written statements from everyone there. By 11:38, a transmission states that all parents without children are in the firehouse training room. If any children are located, call that person. So obviously everyone else was kicked out of that room at some point prior to that, and access was secured. Officers are interviewing the teachers and other witnesses that are at the firehouse. As it became clear which witnesses in the firehouse had observed more than others, officers were taking those people into secure rooms to get more detailed statements from them. It is also clear that access from one room to the next was blocked based on the inhabitants of the room and who was looking for access, as this report describes how children without parents were in one room and parents without kids were in another, and both were guarded by police officers to keep out the media, and so on. The important part that you should be picking up on is not so much exactly what was going on in the firehouse, but the fact that there was not a free flow of traffic within the firehouse. Doors were locked, guards were posted, access was blocked. And so it is obvious, through very basic research, that these people captured by the aerial footage are not aimlessly walking in circles in and out of the firehouse. They are taking the shortest path available to them, from the southwest doors of the rear section of the firehouse to the garage bay, leaving the firehouse, walking around, and yes, going back inside. At this point, anyone who still wants to claim that the argument in this documentary is reasonable is facing Occam's razor. Either these people are crisis actors, hired to walk in a circle, not one of whom will ever leak one single syllable about their involvement in this massive, elaborate, sinister, clandestine, heinous, and anti-constitutional operation to enslave America, or a door's locked. That's all this ridiculous theory has ever boiled down to, and how embarrassing for the hoaxers that for over a year now, none of them have bothered to do even this cursory fact check. These are people that fancy themselves independent journalists, researchers, and investigators, demanding full disclosure of all information about the case, and yet they don't read the report that's already been released, containing the exact information they're looking for. It's pathetic. Hey, on that note, let's get back to Mr. Stosh. Now he's weaving some tale about this kid in the yellow sweatshirt.
When we focus on individual people in the video, we see the same anomalous behavior. The kid in the yellow Under Armour shirt is the best example of this. Throughout the time he is observed, he just walks aimlessly around, in circles. He does this until a lady walks up to him and ushers him away. Now, did this lady notice that he was a little too blatant in his attempt at creating a chaotic scene?
Just think about that for a second. This is a reunification point where adults are waiting desperately for children to show up. When an adult spots a child and takes them aside, Stosh thinks it's suspect. Does he explain why? Of course not. Does he indicate, even for a second, what behavior he possibly would regard as not suspect? Of course not. He just violates his pledge not to engage in wild speculation.
This documentary is not meant to focus on speculation. Now, did this lady notice that he was a little too blatant in his attempt at creating a chaotic scene? This documentary is not meant to focus on speculation.
And then he just changes the subject to the scene back at the school, where he lies to his viewers again and again.
And to clear up any confusion you may have about the dashcam videos and the lack of evidence of a mass evacuation, let's take a look at the police report. In report number 000-56732, the John McGeever dashcam timeline, it states that, quote, the following is a timeline of pertinent events that were captured by the video recorder and observed and recorded by me while watching this DVD, signed by Allison Peters. It is a video of a forward-facing view from the cruiser of the school parking lot and captures the northeast corner of the building. Now, the northeast corner of the building just so happens to be where the majority of the alleged evacuations took place. Remember, the officer claims to have watched the video and observed the mass evacuation, yet we never see it in the video.
Did you catch his deception there? No shame if you didn't, but he definitely should be ashamed. Mrs. Stosh cites a timeline of Officer McGeever's dashcam footage, which he points out shows the northeast corner of Sandy Hook Elementary. This is not the northeast corner of Sandy Hook Elementary. Take a look at the physical arrangements of the 3 police cruisers whose dashcam footage has been released. Officers McGeever, Davis, and Blumenthal. McGeever's dashcam does indeed point toward the northeast corner of the school, but Stosh is showing Davis's dashcam and trying to pass it off as McGeever's. Could this be because he knows that the clock on Davis's dashcam was 1 minute and 19 seconds slow that day, and thus will not match the timeline if you neglect to make the proper adjustments? And keep in mind, this segment was supposed to
clear up any confusion you may have about the dashcam videos.
Thanks, Tosh. Your misinformation really cleared up all the confusion.
Remember, the officer claims to have watched the video and observed the mass evacuation, yet we never see it in the video. These are blatant lies. The issue with Sandy Hook is the abundance of redactions and the total lack of visual and video evidence pointing to a real mass shooting. We are told many tales of what happened, but how can we trust the Connecticut State Police when they have been proven to be liars?
Yes, indeed. How are you supposed to trust anyone that is a proven liar? Let's keep that concept in mind as we hear out what Stosh says next. And by the way, this next part includes some pretty graphic descriptions of the crime scene. If that's not something you want to hear, I don't blame you. Go ahead and close the video. We're almost done here. Anyone still there? Okay, here we go.
How can we trust the Connecticut State Police when they have been proven to be liars? We are told that 25 of the bodies weren't even worth rushing to a hospital. We are told that only 3 EMTs were allowed access into the school to assess the dozens of bodies located inside. Everybody else was ordered to stand off. We are told that these bodies were left to rot in the school all day long. We are told by Peter Lanza, of all people, via the New Yorker, that his son could barely tie his own shoe at the age of 17.
The article Stosh refers to is The Reckoning, an interview with the shooter's father. In it, Peter Lanza recalls going on a hike with his son 3 years before the shooting occurred. His sharing of this story is in the context of showing how Nancy Lanza indulged the shooter's neurotic behavior while at the same time refusing to recognize what his actual mental disorders were, and as a consequence did not understand her son's capabilities. The shooter paused to tie his shoe, I guess as opposed to tying your shoe while in mid-stride. He was not barely able to tie his own shoe. When Nancy expresses surprise that he did tie his own shoe, this is an example of how she did not have an accurate perception of what her son was capable of. You know, like murdering her and 26 innocent people. But Stosh isn't done.
Yet this uncoordinated, mentally challenged kid was able to accomplish the unthinkable within just minutes. The police report states that Lanza, after he was done with his rampage, piled dead bodies in a bathroom.
Wrong again. The report he refers to is the written statement of a first responder giving his narrative of how the day unfolded. And it states, "I then walked into a room with Sergeant Carrio. At first glance, it did not appear that there were any casualties. To the left of the room as you walk in, there was a bathroom in the corner. There was a massive pile of bodies in this room. At the time, I did not know that it was a bathroom and wondered how the suspect had the time to kill that many people and stack them in the corner of the room." I actually took Mr. Stosh to task on this when his documentary came out, and here is our exchange. By the way, this was on a comment thread on his YouTube channel. It was a public conversation. Here I explain. Your quote, "The police report states that Lanza, after he was done with his rampage, piled dead bodies in a bathroom." And you're basing that on a first responder saying what he wondered in the split second when he first saw the scene? Seriously? And you said this in a documentary that criticizes others for publishing incorrect reports? His response, "No, I'm not bashing a first responder. I'm questioning the legitimacy of the official story. How could Lanza have had time to pile dead bodies along with all the other stuff he supposedly accomplished all in just 3 to 5 minutes? Nice try twisting my words, though." My response, "I did not twist your words. I quoted you word for word. You said, the police report states that Lanza, after he was done with his rampage, piled dead bodies in a bathroom. The police report you admit to basing this upon is the recollection of one first responder stating what he remembers wondering in the exact moment when he saw the bodies. The report does not state, at any point, that Adam Lanza physically piled dead bodies in a bathroom. Cut and dried. You're a liar and a hypocrite. What do you have to say in your defense?" Obviously, I was a little angry here, but I don't think without reason. Finally, Mr. Stosh concedes he was wrong, which I appreciate as it's the responsible thing to do, but then he lies again when he says he will be editing out this segment when he uploads it, which still has not happened. That doesn't concern me so much, though, as much as his ridiculous attempt to deny responsibility for his claims when he said he was not bashing a first responder, and then claims that his bodies in the bathroom argument was just a passing statement that didn't have any bearing on the point he was making. These are blatant lies. In fact, the only way we could really capture just how much he and everyone else in this documentary spit in the face of the first responders would be to go through a detailed timeline of everything that happened in the school that day, pausing to point out every lie they tell about it.